not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and get back up and keep moving, because that's how you win. And being able to be open to those emotions coming to you, recognizing I'm not creating them, so I have to get them.
So the biggest gap in life isn't knowledge versus ignorance, it's knowledge versus taking action.
And our thoughts have frequencies, and they are connected to other things. And string theory and metaphysics, that everything is connected to everything.
Most people don't need another strategy. They need to understand what's stopping them from using the strategy they already have.
You just got to get going, and whatever is preventing you from taking those first steps, that's your real problem. It's not the plan, and it's not the strategy.
Today's guest believes it's something that many people won't agree with initially. He believes most people don't have an information problem. They have an emotional problem. In fact, he believes that many people already know exactly what they need to do to improve their life. Build a business, fix a relationship, lose weight, become successful, etc., etc. And yet, they still don't do it. Not because they're lazy, not because they lack discipline, but because something much deeper is happening underneath the surface. Craig Hallenberger is an emotional authority coach who helps people uncover the hidden emotional patterns that drive their decisions, behaviors, and ultimately their lives. And what makes his work particularly unique is that it sits in the intersection of psychology, coaching, personal development, and spirituality. Today we're going to explore why people stay stuck, why information alone doesn't create change, why coaches get frustrated with clients, why success doesn't always make people happy, and what may actually be happening beneath the emotions we experience every day. Craig, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me, Dylan. I'm very excited for this conversation. I can't wait to share what I've learned.
That's fantastic. So Craig, everybody today has access to more information than ever before. Books, podcasts, YouTube, AI. So why are people still stuck?
I think it's a really interesting question the way you're phrasing it, because you're pointing at that answer. The answer goes back to how we feel. For me, this journey started in a very particular moment. In 2007, I had my second child. And 20 years before that, I started with this very empty feeling inside. And I was sitting there holding my second child. Everybody around me was so excited, and there was a moment of joy for everybody. And for me, it was this moment of despair. And it started me on a journey. I say, why did I feel like this? I have to figure this out. Not only for me, but for my kids, to be able to raise my children and raise a family. And that led me down through a lot of self-help, a lot of psychology, a lot of metaphysics. And I kept running into the same wall. And the same thing I kept running into is, where are these emotions coming from? Everybody could tell me that it was about an interior life, and my interior life becomes an exterior life. And so what you're asking is really, really important. I could tell somebody as a coach exactly what to do. But if they don't believe they can do it, then they're not going to move. And that's the precipitous that I help people work through. That's why I call myself an emotional authority coach, because it's really just about how you feel.
Wow. So has information become overrated?
I don't think so. I don't know if I would look at it that way. I think information is still really, really powerful, especially the ability to gather it and slice and dice it correctly for people to know what to do. But this still comes down, if you're in a coaching mechanism or if you are in something you really want to do in your life, it still comes down, are you emotionally there? Mm. Do you believe you deserve it? Do you believe that that you're capable of doing it? Those things still stand in your way. Even, the best example I always give everybody is like, how do we lose weight? How are we healthy? That really isn't that complicated. But yet look at the diet industry, look at the gym industry, look at how many home gyms there are, because everybody's looking for the the new way to do it. Maybe there's a secret way that I don't know about. Maybe there's a shortcut that I won't have to work that hard. But we both know that's not true. And anybody listening to this podcast know that's not true. But yet there is a group of people that they just do it. They manage what they eat, they exercise regularly, they control what their intake and their outtake, because that's really all it's about. But that discipline still goes back to their emotion. Do they want to do it? Do they think they can do it? Well, are they willing to find a time during the day to go do the things necessary correctly? Are they willing to sit at a table with you and I while we have a piece of cake when they've hit their calories for the day? That all goes back to emotions. That really isn't a set of rules that we've learned to follow. That is basically how we feel and how determined we are to do something.
For sure. You know, the secret sauce, I'll tell you what the secret sauce is. The secret sauce is just do the work. Right?
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Comes,
yeah.
There's no like epiphany. There's like basic do the work. Right? Do the work. And you know, if information changed lives, everybody with a smartphone would be thriving, right?
Absolutely. And everybody would be happy, right? Because we all have all this information right in front of us. But still you see a lot of people, you know, walking around a city or walking wherever you live, and they're not happy.
Yeah.
They're frustrated. And it really goes back to understanding that we have to know how to do something, but that information is almost at our fingertips now. But yet we're still stuck. And that was what I felt. Really, I did. I mean, for everybody looking at me from the outside, well, he's doing okay. I mean, he's got a job, he's got a family, you know, he does the things that everybody tells him to do. He's living what everybody else would consider an American dream life. But I wasn't happy. And that was something that I had to go back and dig through. And it took me a decade, almost 11 years, to get it all figured out, to really dig through everything that I was being told to get down to what's my real problem.
That's incredible. It's unbelievable what we're indoctrinated with to think success looks like. And then when we check all those boxes on that grocery list of things that we are told we should live by, to peel that back is, you know, as you is a lot of work and a lot of time, as you mentioned, a decade's worth of time to get there.
Well, that's really cool the way you said that, because I think a lot of times we subscribe to somebody else's definition of what success looks like. And then even when we do reach that, we're still not happy because it wasn't our definition. It wasn't true happiness.
Right, for sure. You know, one thing you said previously, I think in our pre-call, that stood out to me, you've trained people, you taught them exactly what to do. Some succeeded dramatically, others didn't.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, I spent some time in corporate training, and I was in sales training for an insurance company, and I was teaching them life insurance. And I had been a successful life insurance salesperson, and all I was really doing was just, this is how I did it. This was my script. This is how I presented the products. And the company thought I was doing great. I was getting 25% sales lifts out of the class. They were happy as a clam. But when you look at the actual data, there were 25 people in this class, and it was really 2 people getting a 300% lift and 23 people doing nothing. They literally wasted 2 days of their life. They did nothing. From my perspective, it was frustrating on 2 levels. I mean, I was pouring my heart out. I was sharing people exactly how to do it. As any good coach gets excited about what they know, we want to see people succeed. We want to see people get that light bulb moment. And then you look at the numbers and you realize they didn't do anything with it. And it was really frustrating. And that was kind of about the time all this was starting for me too. And like, God, there's got to be something happening for everybody.
Right.
Because there's got to be something else happening, because it's not telling them what to do. We're all telling them what to do. And that really made me start pointing at the interior life a lot. Somebody's interior life makes a whole lot of difference here.
So would you say that separates the person from a person who takes action from a person who doesn't?
I think it does, and it is what's happening interior for them. And it can be all the normal things we think about. It could be somebody's background. It could be where they come from. But you also see anomalies in that, right? I mean, you and I could look at history of people who have been very successful, people we know today. They didn't come from privileged backgrounds. They came from tough backgrounds. And they worked their way through education systems, whatever they had to learn to become successful within their industry. I could also flip it the other way. I could go into families that are third generation wealth and they're losing it. Like they're making mistakes. It isn't all about our environment. We get caught up in that. A lot of times you hear people will say, well, man, if I could have gone to that university, or if I could have learned that level of education, or if I could have been mentored by that person, then well, sure, I would be successful too. But for every person that you can define that for me, I can go find you the opposite. I can go find you the person that scratched and clawed their way there. It's more about your interior. I don't know anybody watching this if I'm going to really age myself or not, but in the Rocky movies, there was a scene when he was older and his son was coming up, and he tells his son, it's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and get back up and keep moving, because that's how you win. And I think if anybody listening to this that is already succeeding, they'd be nodding their head, yeah, you're going to get knocked down. But what's the mentality? What's happening interiorly for somebody that makes them get back up? You know, I mean, if I just got punched in the mouth, why would I get back up? That is the change that somebody has to look at. You may have a game plan. You may know exactly what to do to reach the goal that you want to go to, but you're like, I can't get up and move. I can't make myself do it.
Right.
And that's where I really help people, getting down into that, because that's it. That's everything. Because so much will change once you understand what's happening in your interior life.
So somebody can, what I'm hearing is you're saying that somebody can be highly intelligent and have all the tools and resources around them, but emotionally trapped.
Absolutely. I cannot remember off the top of my head right now where I read it, but I've read some really interesting statistics that some of the wealthiest people in the world right now are not high IQ individuals.
Right.
They're not. They're in this emotional alignment. They're able to control their emotions. They're able to focus them on what they need to do, and they just get the job done. And no matter what wall comes up in front of them, no matter how many thousand people tell them no, they just keep standing up and they just keep going. And I think that is a much higher determination of whether somebody can succeed or not than how much information is put in front of them. Both you and I have had some experience with artificial intelligence, and anything we want to know is at our fingertips. It's pretty amazing what you can do with that today, the questions you can ask, the amount of work that it can do for you. But if it gives you something powerful to do and you go watch a movie and do nothing with it, then it was just a complete waste.
Right. So the biggest gap in life isn't knowledge versus ignorance. It's knowledge versus taking action.
I think that's right. I think action controls a lot more, and you and I don't do anything without our emotions aligned to it. We keep going back to belief. You can hear a lot of coaches talk about you have to believe you can do it. You have to believe. Yeah, belief is an emotion, and it's a complicated, deep emotion. Because I can believe one part of my life with 100% confidence, and other parts of my life I can be a complete Debbie Downer, and I could doubt everything that's going on. So it isn't just saying I believe, it's what do I believe, what do I think is possible, and how determined am I to make that happen. Everything I just laid out, all those are emotions.
Got it. So let's look at the world of emotions. You describe yourself as an emotional authority coach. What does emotional authority actually mean?
I think it has two parts. The first part is being open and being willing to dig down and understand where these emotions are coming from. And it takes a lot of work. It's intimate, and but it's valuable. Once you're doing that, then you have the framework to where you can be saying, okay, here's are the emotions that I need. Now I know where the emotions are coming from, so I can start getting the emotions that I need for the goals that I have in front of me. And you can't do the second part without the first part. A good analogy for somebody to think about in this is that if I wanted to run a race, if I wanted to run the race, I have to learn how to run first. I have to learn the actual mechanics of running. So if you don't understand how an emotion is coming to you, because psychology will verify everything I'm already tell you, and that is at a conscious level and a subconscious level, you don't create an emotion. You think, reason, and judge consciously, and subconsciously you store it. But all those things are just recording. They're not creating. You have to get into what a metaphysics person would define as the energy world, the energy that's under everything. That's where emotions are coming from. And if you're willing to take that journey, you can get some pretty valuable things out of it.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, I believe everything is energy myself, you know. Most people think they're controlling their emotions, but you believe the opposite. Why?
I don't see, you can't control something you don't create. I think that's the part of the equation where I would disagree with that, because I can have authority over it and I can ask for it, but there's nothing about my body that's creating it. And it's really hard to control something I don't create. I might be able to cope with it. I might be able to find some mechanisms that give me peace for a little while, right? I might be able to come to a level of reconciliation with something that's happened in the past, or maybe a family member that's hurt me. I might be able to do that, but that's not authority. That's not saying I need to feel at peace with this, or I need to be determined to do this, or I need to have joy in this part of my life. That's not that at all. That's just kind of learning how to manage it. And I got a lot of that in the 20 years that I had this. I mean, I wasn't quiet about it. I was speaking with everybody in my life. I had loving parents and siblings, and I was vocal that I was struggling, and everybody tried to help me, but it was always just a coping mechanism. It wasn't what you and I are discussing here. Like, man, if you're willing and open, it's there, and it's there for you to take. But man, you got to be willing to go down into it.
No, for sure. I mean, so are you saying that, are people creating their emotions or reacting to something deeper?
They're reacting. I think reacting is a great way to look at it, Dylan. They're reacting to what's coming. A great way to, I think about this a lot is, I don't know if anybody on this listen to the podcast that would have children. When your 1-year-old child falls for the first time after walking, they don't immediately cry. They will look at you and they will react. They will either cry or they will stand up and walk by how you react. If you run to them terrified, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean for you to get hurt, they're going to start crying. If you go up and say, no big deal, come on buddy, get up, let's walk, then they just get up and start walking. That's how you are subconsciously. Remember, you're not going to grow a conscious part of your mind till we go through the chemical process of puberty. That's when we really go a conscious mind. That's why teenage years are so hard, because you're kind of waking up. Before that, you're just one big subconscious ball of mush. You're just accepting everything that comes to you. We see this phenomenon with kids who have the opportunity to travel internationally when they're young. They'll learn multiple languages without even thinking twice about it. At my age, at 56 years old, me trying to learn a second language is pretty tough. I got to really work at it because my conscious mind has established itself now. So that's that good example where that child's just reacting.
Reacting to what how the parent is acting.
Exactly.
So can
sociology talks about this a lot.
Sorry, say that again?
I said sociologists talk on this a lot, that we learn about how to live life by how our parents live their life. We watch how our parents are treating other people. We watch how our parents are treating the neighbors, what they're willing to sacrifice when somebody drops a bag at the grocery store. Are they willing to stop and pick it up, or do they just keep walking? You're digesting all of that. Just like you're not creating an emotion. You're not creating that morality system. You're learning that morality system from what's around you.
Yeah. So can emotions literally shape the course of someone's life?
I would definitely agree with that statement. And whoever is controlling that, whoever is giving you that emotion, definitely has authority over your life.
Right. So that's almost our power.
Absolutely. And if you can gain it back, you take full control of your power. That would be a very strong statement, but it would be true.
How do you help people get that power back?
For me, I learned the solution in a theology, understanding how Christianity works, specifically a Catholic theology. Catholicism is 2,000 years old, and it's been, people will be very surprised, but it has been cultivating the interior mind the entire time. You can go back 700-800 years into a period of the church that would be known as the mystic period, and there were mystics. We have saints that could levitate. We have saints that could bilocate, be in two places at once, and they got there because they understood the interior life. They understood what was happening, and what now what science is calling an energy level. Science is catching up to what was already there, and that probably was one of the most surprising things to me on this journey, was realizing that while all these metaphysics were great and psychology was awesome, it only took me so far, and that there was this organization that I happened to be raised and be part of that had the rest of the story. It had the rest of the pieces that I need to understand, oh, that's what's going on down there. And that's why most people know Jesuit priests. That's a very popular way of looking at it. But their founder was St. Ignatius, and he developed what is known as discernment of the spirits. How do I read the energy of my body? How do I recognize what's happening at an energy level for me, and how do I respond to it? Man, that's what we're doing in meditation. That's what we're doing in all kinds of other things. It's just taking the position of, rather than me initiating it, I'm willing to be open to letting it come to me. And that's really the flip that happens. That's one of the flips that happens. And this is where, if you listen to me, I'm trying not to say it, because it gets into a point where somebody has to be very comfortable. You've got to be able to give them the right kind of tools to get there. But I'm trying to give you as much framework as I can in this format.
No, I love that. I mean, most definitely, I believe energy is everything. What I'm hearing also is what you're saying is like the awareness to be still. And
It's a very important piece of it.
which we don't know how to do.
Well, I think it goes back to the information piece, right? We, as a society, and this is the way I was raised too, maybe my problem was I didn't know enough. If I knew more, if I got more information, then I could figure it out. I mean, some people even take it to the theory that like there's secret societies that are holding all this really great information from us, right? And we think that that's what we're missing. And because we do live in an information age, that's the core message of what we're around and what we live with. And I have learned very quickly over the last 7 or 8 years after I figured this out that no, it's really about how I feel, and it's really about where these emotions and being able to be open to those emotions coming to you, recognizing I'm not creating them, so I have to get them. And that's where the authority comes from. That's why I call it an emotional authority coach. I'm not an emotional coping coach. I'm an emotional authority coach.
Most people think that they are making decisions, but by all accounts, often it's their emotions making those decisions for them.
Well, I think, yeah, that's an interesting combination the way you put it together, because I think people are still making decisions. It's just that they have to understand that the biggest factor in that decision is how they feel. It's even a bigger factor than the pros and cons of the decisions they have to make. It's how they feel. And we see this a lot where I first started recognizing it once I identified it, seen it in a real world in front of me, was you could read case studies of successful people. And I heard it first in athletes, is where I really heard it first. And you would hear them talk about a moment in the event that they were, and they would talk about it, and they just would say, well, we just knew if we kept with our game plan, we were going to win. Or maybe as an individual sport, I just knew if I could do X, I was going to win. I'm a golfer. I love playing golf, and I would hear this in golfers. I just knew if I could post this score, then I could win. And again, that you see, that isn't the mechanism of how they were going to do it. It was this confidence, this emotion that was welling up from inside them, that they just knew if they did that, they were going to win. And you also see this a lot in business. A lot of people will look back and they just had a gut feeling they should go this route. Their gut was telling them that. So the decision-making process is still in place, but the emotion is what's driving it.
You know, it's interesting what you say about that people felt it. You say in sports people, in business people, they just knew, and that's really getting on a wavelength where you are not letting any noise detract you from that energy, that frequency, that vibration.
Well, I think that's where modern ideas are helping the older ideas of what I learned from 800 years ago and 1,000 years ago. That science of understanding that our thoughts are things and our thoughts have frequencies and they are connected to other things. And, string theory and metaphysics, that everything is connected to everything. And if I have a thought, that thought is attracting other thoughts and it's pushing and pulling things around us. And I think that's a really important thing in understanding this. That's why emotions are so important, because to me, the emotions are the frequency. The way I have come to discover this, Dylan, is that if I want to know what frequency on, it's not what I'm thinking. And that's what a lot of metaphysics will tell you. It's what you're focusing in on. No, it's what you're feeling. What you're feeling is really determining that frequency. Our emotions are how we're describing how that's flowing through our body. We're using emotions to do that naturally as human beings. So if you're using the right wording, if I can get the right emotion and I can get the right frequency connected to where I want to go, I'm going to go. Now, I may have to jump through a few walls and I may have some obstacles in the way, but I'm going to go through them. Whereas somebody who's not in that emotional frame with that right frequency, that first wall, they're going to hit it and they're going to turn left and they're going to walk a completely different direction.
How'd you get onto that frequency?
Boy, that's I guess the quickest answer I can give you to that is I really was able to connect the emotions and the frequencies. That was a big shift for me. Once I was able to catch, what these people are talking about is not the image of what I'm thinking about. It's the emotion I have under it. It's the emotion that's swelling up as I think about what I want to do. That got me. Once that became the frequency for me, then man, what Einstein talked about, what Freud was talking about in our conscious and our subconscious, it all just kind of started dominoing down. And then that's when the spirituality kind of kicked in, because then it started connecting to me. What's happening for people at a spiritual level is emotional. And then it just kind of all kind of merged together. And that's where my solutions started coming in front of me.
So that's interesting. One thing that makes your work different from what I hear is that you're willing to discuss spirituality. Many coaches avoid it. Why do you think that is?
For me, it's almost a necessity. I mean, I even say Catholic. It's very difficult for me to provide you the solution and you not be in that framework of spirituality with me, because that is where this is coming from. If you went into the Gospels of the Christian Church, right, and you went into John, in John chapter 3, that's where most people pull that Jesus came to save the world. He said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. But more importantly, in that conversation, he was trying to explain to a religious man at that time called Nicodemus, trying to explain to them that you need to be born in spirit. Everything's happening in spirit. You need to be born again in spirit. He was starting this conversation with the world. Now, Nicodemus was doing what most people would do today. And then it's like, that makes no sense, Craig. How can I go back in my mother's womb? That was literally the conversation that was happening 2,000 years ago. And when you look at energy and you can hear the word energy and spirit and frequency, and they all start lining up, that's where I'm willing to say, you know what, that's the solution. And I understand a lot of people may not be willing to go down that road. I get it. When I was building the structure of my coaching practice, my children go, my boys are older. They're still my children. It's funny, my boys, they're in college and they go to a big university with a big football stadium, 105,000 people every Saturday afternoon in the fall to watch football. I was sitting there at a game and I realized I only need one or two rows. I don't need the whole stadium. And that gave me a lot of confidence to say, you know what? I am a Catholic. I understand this from Catholic teaching. The solution exists there. And if somebody wants to come down into that world with me, I can help them because I understand that's where the solution lies. It's an interesting way, as I look back now, it's an emotional thing too. I'm at peace with that. I understand that I'm not going to coach. I'm not going to sell 1 million books. I get that. That's not what I'm going to do. But the people I am going to coach, I'm really going to be able to help because I understand my niche. I understand how it works. And if they're willing to come there with me, I can help them.
So how does spirituality fit into emotional healing?
Because in that spiritual realm, when we're talking about being born in spirit, you're waking up to the fact that you are spirit. You are spirit at your core. One day you're going to leave this body and you're just going to be spirit. That's where emotions are coming from. There are beings in that energy that's giving you these emotions, and you have authority to ask. You have authority to where those emotions are coming from. That's the work. That's why it's so intimate. That's why I know I've said that once before. I'm gonna harp on it. Like, it's intimate because you're taking somebody down to their core. There is nothing to hide because you're at an energy level with them. And if I don't do it right, I expose them to some stuff too. So I learned that the really, really hard way, Dylan, in my own life. I learned that the really, really hard way, that there's not all light, happy forces. There are some dark forces in there. And if you're not careful how you're doing this, you can expose some people to some dangerous things. And that's when I got really, okay, it has to be in this box. If it's not in this box, then I'm not willing to have a conversation with somebody because it's not worth the longer term replication of that.
So do you believe there are forces influencing people that they don't fully recognize?
I absolutely know that. That's what was happening for me. I was in that 100%. And even the people within that faith structure didn't understand what I understand now. I am literally educating them along the way as what I'm, and it took me almost a year to go back and do the research myself to be able to prove to them, well, this is what Francis of Assisi was saying 800 years ago. This is what St. Ignatius was saying 1,000 years ago. This is what St. John of the Cross was saying 720 years ago. It was already being said. It's just that in modern day, it just doesn't really come up. We rely a lot on science. We rely a lot on things that we understand from medicine that we can prove in a petri dish. The reality of what's happening for us is much deeper, and that's where I'm working to build a coaching practice around, because that's what changed my life, and I'm very passionate about wanting to help somebody else experience the same problems, especially if they were kind of in my realm. We were doing everything right. We were doing everything we were supposed to do, and we just really felt this emptiness. I really want to help people in that environment live a peaceful life.
Wow. I believe in everything that you said. I believe in spirituality. I believe in a higher self. I believe in tapping into something beyond this 3D world that we live in, for sure.
Oh, I like that. I might steal that, by the way, Dylan. I like that.
All yours, all yours. And it's interesting how you mentioned this has been talked about
Come on,
800 years
Internet,
ago,
catch up.
1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. It's super interesting that you go back 1,000 years, 2,000 years, and quote those This has been talked about for a long time, but we just haven't got it. So how do you talk about this in today's world without sounding extreme?
I think it's actually coming through the modern things, coming through self-help vocabulary, coming through metaphysics vocabulary, energy and thoughts, and setting a goal and envisioning a goal. What's happening with a vision board? That kind of vocabulary allows me then to get to, okay, but what do you feel when you write that on the vision board? Where's that emotion coming from? Why would you feel sad about something you really want? Why would you feel scared about something that you really want? And starting to understand that higher purpose. Then you can get somebody there, right? Does that make sense, Dylan? Now all of a sudden, I'm not jumping a cavern. I'm literally just taking a step, and all of a sudden, I'm in a completely different world.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's getting someone to believe that that exists.
Yeah, and I think this is actually a gift. I think this is a gift for psychology and metaphysics, and this self-help industry that's about 75, 80 years old for us is really doing a heavy lifting for the world of spirituality. And if the world of spirituality, this is kind of where I am with my church, if the world of spirituality is open to just take a step forward to them, man, you can bring a lot of people with you because you can understand it at a very different level. That when you're over here in the structure of religion, it gets very rigid. And if you don't say it exactly right, you're wrong. To whereas in metaphysics, you get a little more freedom. You get a little more freedom to say it in multiple different ways. And I think that's the value of being able to understand what's truly happening inside of us.
So it feels like the most important battles in life often happen where nobody can see them.
Yeah, I try to tell people that I'm coaching that the most dangerous words you're ever going to hear are those words inside of your mind because there's nobody there to defend you. You know, if you and I were friends, but I mean, if we were walking down the street as friends and somebody came up and started saying something harsh to you, I'm either going to tell that person to stop, or at minimum, I'm going to put my arm around you and say, man, you're okay. You're cool. Everything's fine. That doesn't happen inside of our mind. That doesn't happen at a spiritual level. If an emotion comes to you that you didn't want, a dark, deep, empty emotion, there's nobody there to defend you. It's just you. And you've got to figure out a way to cope with it.
Yeah,
and this
absolutely.
is where we can get some really bad things happen for people.
Yeah, for sure. You know, if you look at, coaches just in general and the coaching space in general, many coaches become frustrated. They tell people exactly what to do. This is what you need to get done. The person agrees, they understand, or they say they understand. Then they do nothing. Why does this happen? What are coaches missing?
I think coaches are missing the fact that just because it worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody that I speak with. And I think that's where coaches have to come to that understanding. I can tell 100 people, but 100 people aren't going to all do it. But if I am willing to drive, then I get 25, 30 people to do it. And that's a worthy goal. That's worthy to be that. If you want to understand why all 100 aren't, then you're going to have to take the journey into spirituality. You're going to have to go down into that energy and understand why somebody would flat out lie to you and say, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I'm going to do that. And then when you follow up with them in 15, 20 days, they haven't done anything. And that's not on you. I think that's what I would tell coaches. You're going to feel guilty for that. You're going to feel like you're doing something wrong, but you're pushing up against something that you're not going to just logically talk somebody through.
Right.
Because once their emotion has told them they can't do it, it's not going to happen.
So most people don't need another strategy. They need to understand what's stopping them from using the strategy they already have.
I think that's very, very well said, because I think that narrows it down to people to understand that I don't need the shortcut. I don't need the thing that's being held from me. I need to understand why will I not do the thing that's right in front of me? Why won't I take the 4 steps that are right in front of me? If you can solve that problem for yourself, you are going to live in a lot of peace.
You start the journey, don't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Get over
there
that.
was
Make sure you get over that step.
yeah, there was a book written in the 50s called See You at the Top by a Southern Baptist preacher named Zig Ziglar. And he said, if you wait for all of the street lights to turn green, you're never going to start on your journey. And that's a very eloquent way of saying what you and I are trying to say, that like you just got to get going, and whatever is preventing you from taking those first steps, that's your real problem. It's not the plan, and it's not the strategy.
Yeah, wow. So, I mean, that's super interesting, super interesting. So, we're going to go rapid fire here.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
what's one belief you hold that most people disagree with?
That there are things happening underneath the surface that are controlling your life that you have no idea that exist.
What's one emotion that causes more damage than people realize?
Fear.
What's one thing that people should stop doing immediately?
They should stop looking for a solution to a supernatural problem using natural remedies.
What's one thing that people should start doing immediately?
I think they should immediately take moments of the day to realize that something created them, and their job is to find inside their own heart and soul that thing that created them.
What book has influenced your thinking the most?
That's just probably going to surprise a lot of people, but I think the book that influenced me the most is a book written by C.S. Lewis, and it's called The Screw Tape Letters.
Okay.
Somebody's going to go look that up right now. There's going to be a
Yeah,
Google search happening right now.
absolutely, absolutely. If somebody feels stuck today, what is the first question they should ask themselves?
The first questions they ask themselves is, how do you feel? What are you feeling right now being stuck? What is your reaction to that? Because that's going to tell you a lot about what your real problem is.
Interesting. So, Craig, if somebody has listened to this and recognized themselves in this conversation, what's the first step they should take?
I think the first step you can take is to reach out to me. Find me on LinkedIn under Craig Hallenberger. You can find me at a website, craighallenberger.com, and just send me an email, send me a DM, and just tell me what's happening. And I'll respond to you, and I'll tell you what we can do to help you.
Fantastic. So your website, your socials, all of your contact detail under your name is there.
It's all branded under my name. That's correct. There's no other branding around it. If you find Craig Hallenberger, you're going to find it.
Craig Hallenberger. Fantastic. Love that name. So, Craig, this has been super interesting conversation. And to the audience and to everyone watching, if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you reach out to Craig. Go and research what he's doing. Some great work on energy, on some great work on spirituality that most definitely, if you tap into, will help you.
Absolutely.
If you're open-minded to take that first step.
I think that's really important, being open-minded.
Yeah, absolutely. Being open-minded to taking that first step and taking action to take that first step, right? So if this conversation made you think differently about emotions, success, spirituality, or personal growth, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Craig, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.